podcast on Auspod Syndicate.
We're here right now on the beautiful Handorf. And thank you for the house restaurant for the venue for today. And if you like to be in our podcast, just let us know. Please email us at info@kangaroofern.com. Also, if you want to support our podcast as well, you can check that on patreon.com/kangaroofern. For today's episode, we're talking about the power of social media. What is influencer marketing? What is digital marketing that can help your business as well? Some helping tips. Our guest for today is a communicator, content creator, social media guru, and a wine lover. This is one of my favorite, wine lover. So we can ask some question about wine. Definitely, she will answer you what is the best wine in Adelaide Hills region. Please welcome Mikyla Gilbert, aka ideaschick. Thank you so much for coming for our podcast.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
So before we go ahead, so a lot of people, what is ideaschick?
Okay, so the Ideas Chick is a nickname that was given to me when I was a teenager, and it stuck with me. And I'm still trying to decide, in my 40s, whether I should be the Ideas Chook or or the Ideas Chick. But it has stuck with me my entire adult life, really. And I just use it. It differentiates me. People say my name wrong. It's Mikyla, not Michaela.
Okay.
So, I guess the Ideas Chick is an easier way to find me. And, you type in Ideas Chick and you can find me online. You don't necessarily have to know how to spell my name correctly. So it's just another way of search, which is fantastic as well.
Is it because you are a content creator, a creative?
Yeah, I'm one of these people that you can sit me in a boardroom with someone with a whiteboard and they'll give me a challenge and I'll come up with loads of ideas. I'm not necessarily the one to carry out those ideas, but at least I can think outside the box and throw them out there, to get juices flowing and to get people to think differently.
Before this age of influencer marketing, digital marketing, are you doing the email marketing before?
Yeah, well, actually, my background is I was a journalist. So I'm a storyteller by trade. So I've been telling stories before I was able to walk. So my mum will tell you that I was walking around at 2 with the hairbrush interviewing the dog, I was always into telling people stories. And, one of those things is to find an angle. And that comes into the ideas is people going, I don't know what makes me unique. I don't know what my story is. So being able to instantly find an angle for an interview or a story is kind of where the ideation sort of comes from. And that comes not just from telling stories in newspaper or on radio or blogging today. It can come from, a brand or those sorts of things. So I worked in old school print journalism and then became an editor of a local newspaper. And then I went to the dark side of journalism and went into PR and marketing because I was so frustrated working on the editorial side and seeing how lazy or how the ideas weren't being generated for me. Like journalism became harder and harder. Even today I feel for the ones that are, they've had their staff cut by, 1,000% and they're having to do everything. So from a PR perspective, it's really important that you go in with a really clear idea so that you're saving journalists time. So I sort of went to the other side and I felt that I could add value to the industry by doing it that way. And I've always been passionate about the arts and wine. So that were the two areas that I went into, food, wine and art. And then I worked in marketing for SA Great, which is now, I guess it's gone through many different sort of phases. It went through to Advantage SA, to I Choose SA, to Buy SA, to Showcase SA. So I was very heavily involved there. I worked in the film industry for quite a while. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter, I launched my own series of magazines. So I owned Adelaide Hills magazine. Publishing was fantastic. I love magazines. I love being able to come up with great story angles to find the stories. And my passion for the Adelaide Hills region, I'm 4th generation Adelaide Hills. My daughter's 6th generation Adelaide Hills. So I know a lot about the region. So sharing those stories, I think we were probably 10 years ahead of our time. We won loads of awards though, and what a great team of people I had the joy of working with. I did have to give up that business due to family illness. But then I went on and worked for the Adelaide Oval, setting up their social media and media department for the new stadium, and then worked for New Style Media, where I had the joy of working on many different magazines and many different projects, including a wine magazine and a travel magazine. And now I'm working in Hahndorf, but I also run my own business, so I'm working with lots of different clients again.
So what do you think is the best practice of social media?
The best practice of social media is to be as truthful and honest as you can, and don't bullshit people, because we're pretty smart.
So what do you think, how powerful is social media?
Yeah, look, I think it's powerful, but I think it's always been powerful from the day we discovered that it was labor intensive but quite cost effective. I mean, in 20 years' time, we'll be laughing at how we missed a great opportunity, and we're sitting in that opportunity now still. People are complaining that digital marketing is costing a lot of money. It's still so cheap, like you look at what a full page ad in a magazine costs, it's like $5,000, and you only reach 10 or 20,000 people, so you think about how many people you can reach using social media. Social media is very, very powerful if you know how to use it right, and using it consistently is, I think, the really important aspect of social media is being consistent. It's taking risks, which I think a lot of us don't do because we're afraid of looking like a dork, or that we are going backwards, or that we're not doing it the way everyone else is. And I think if you worry about what everyone else is doing, you tend to not take risks. I think risk taking is really important, but social media itself is still 90% free, but it's not free in money. What I'm saying is that the barrier to entry is really, really low. Like, anyone can set up an Instagram account, anyone can set up a blogging site for free, anyone can set up a YouTube channel. So the barrier of entry, that's the power of it, is it's open access. Not everyone can afford a graphic designer to do an ad in a magazine. Not everyone can afford a TV ad. So from a business perspective, social media is incredibly powerful because it allows you to get your message across. But, and I will say this, we've got to stop looking at social media about what we should be telling people, what we think we should be telling people, and be mostly concerned with what people want to consume. And I think that's the difference. It's really hard for me as a social media marketer to get that across to even clients. Sometimes they want to promote what they want to promote, and I'm like, but nobody cares. And that's really, really hard to get that across to people. So
So the social media have also a risk. So how do you handle, for example, you have a client?
Yes.
How do you handle negative comments?
Negative comments on their brand?
On the brand, yeah.
Yeah, look, I love negative comments. I think they're really cool. I love that anyone takes the time to, you think about how you use social media, and I always like to look at this is, how do I use social media? Well, I scroll so fast, whatever it is, and I very rarely stop and comment. So if someone stopped and commented, man, they're good customer. We can turn them around. They actually care enough. That's the way I look at it first, is I go in going, wow, you actually care enough. I think most people now are taking it off the feed and turning it into direct messaging. So I think the power of direct messaging is where it's heading in 2020. So we're almost like going backwards. It's almost like we tried to get people off the feed when they had a negative comment, and now I want them on the feed, because we no longer have an opportunity to speak to many, because it's now become one-to-one online marketing. Now, that's not the definition of marketing. The definition of marketing is one-to-many. So if you take it to a direct messaging, it's almost customer service and not marketing anymore. So it's really interesting. The whole community manager for social media is going to go through a rapid change in 2020. When there's a negative comment on social media, you can tell the difference between someone who generally has had a bad experience and someone who's being an absolute troll. So you when you've been around it long enough, you can tend to tell if someone has had a bad experience, is be open to it, because the chances are they're not the only one that's had one, and you need to learn from it as a brand. So that's what I would say about that.
How about the fake news? Some people doing a comment, but some of them are creating a page against another brand, but it's a fake news. How the social media manager, practitioner
I
deal
think
with
it's
that?
I actually think that is natural selection.
Is that from other
I
competitor?
just think if people are going to get sucked into that, they're not worth my time. Honestly, fake news. Look, I don't really take much notice of it, to be honest. Yeah.
So what social campaign you remember that is very successful?
Okay, cool. I think one of the ones that I absolutely loved working on was for a launch of Cabin, which is a tiny house, which you can rent and hire and go live in. And what I loved about that was we had about 3 months lead time before we actually launched what it was. So we had an opportunity to create a buzz, and with people asking lots of questions. They didn't know what it was about. They knew it had something to do with tiny house movement, but they didn't know what it was, and they didn't know where it was going to be. And that was really fun. And when we launched that site live through Instagram, the website crashed. So, yeah, and they got booked out for a really long time. They're a really successful business. They're still going. So for me, it's a very small campaign, but I really enjoyed that one because it was such a creative one to work on. I love coming up with kind of strategies for social media from the beginning. I've worked a lot with Berenberg as well, so with them globally. So worked with them with Amazon in the US, and working with them now on some ideas for new product launches, which is really exciting. Other campaigns, I really enjoyed doing my own stuff, to be honest. Like the Ideas Chick tips were really fun, and I did them for 3 years, and then when I went and took a contract for 6 months, I stopped doing them. And then people were asking me where they were. Like I'd be in the bank, or I'd be at WOMAD, or I'd be somewhere else, and someone would go, "Why? Where are your tips?" And so that was really fun.
So on the Instagram, social media, Facebook, now TikTok, what do you think will be happening on influencer marketing?
Yeah, well, influencer marketing's obviously had a big shake up with Instagram likes, with all sorts of things. I think Instagram marketing will always have its place. I was speaking to my brother last night, who's a big national, international general manager for a company, and he made me check out he had this influencer that he wanted to support with his product, and I went and did a bit of research to make sure it was a real person. But I think people still want them. People love word of mouth. People like hearing from other people. Now, I think we're smart enough as a society now to know that they're being paid for it. We're not dumb. I think the original influencer marketing of no one knowing whether they just loved this dress or whether it was being paid is completely blurred now. But I think originally we thought it was all organic and natural. I think it's no different than me taking an ad out in a magazine. It's just that their Instagram account is the magazine now. So I think that is the difference there. I look at social media like each hashtag is a different radio station, and then I look at each channel as a different like a magazine. That's how I kind of use my old school brain to kind of look at social media. With influencer marketing, I'm about to do a campaign with dogs who are influencers on Instagram.
I love dog.
I love doggies. Have you got a dog?
Yeah, I got dog. I got Staffy.
I got a Staffy too.
He was here right now in the Burnber with my family, so he's just roaming around here.
Cool.
So what do you think? Because when I search on web browser and Google, a lot of people are buying followers, buying likes.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
Look, I'm still angry at Instagram for holding back on the swipe up thing, like in stories.
I like that, but I'm not, because I'm still not.
10,000, right?
10,000,
I know,
right.
you're very close, but that whole thing, that made lots of companies buy likes. Why wouldn't you want that swipe up feature? So Instagram kind of forced companies to do that, which is really sad. But I don't really care how many followers someone's got. If they're providing content for me, I'm still going to follow them. I think the whole number of followers if you look, my favorite social media channel, I've got 2 channels that I absolutely adore, which is not the 2 that you would think. I use Pinterest more than any other social media channel, and I am in love with LinkedIn more than any other channel. So very interesting that they're not the ones that most people see me on. But LinkedIn, I have over 20,000 connections. I know they're real. I've done them. I haven't bought any.
I message you.
Like, I've done them. But then somebody commented on one of my posts the other night that I posted something and I only had like 34 likes and 2 comments. And she actually said to me in the comments, I think, like, basically accusing me of buying followers because why didn't I have more likes? And it's like, that's not because I don't have 20,000 followers. That's because whatever I posted was shit. So, you know what I mean? Like, so I post a lot of content about my clients. I post a lot of questions. I post a lot of content that may not suit everyone. When you have 20,000 followers, how can you suit everyone? Like, but you know, the whole Instagram, look, I've got a client at the moment, we're doing an influencer campaign and they have to have over 50,000 followers. That's the rule. But I don't know if they're real or not. I mean, you can do a bit of testing, but I look at the posts, I look at the comments, I look at the content. I want to look at how I can see we can collaborate together. And maybe it's not so much about what's on their channel, but what I can use on my channel. So it's about looking at it differently.
Do you really think that have to have a big follower to become an influencer? Because some content creator, they have very good content.
Yeah,
on
they
YouTube,
do.
Facebook. But unfortunately, there are not too many followers.
But for an influencer marketing campaign,
how did it started, the influencer marketing?
Well, I don't know exactly how it started, but we were trying to I guess the industry was trying to figure out what to call it, and it made more sense. But influencer marketing's been going on forever. I think we used to call it PR. Like, it's just different, you know.
Yeah, different.
Getting someone to wear your dress down the red carpet was influencer marketing. So, I mean, I think it's the same sort of thing. I look at it a little bit differently than most people would, I guess. But when you think about when I'm paying for content, I don't want it to be seen by no one. So especially if you've got clients, you have to be responsible to boards, to budgets, to return on investment, so to speak. So it is a tough one.
So saying by that, what do you think is a successful content, successful project?
Successful content is one that drives
what
dollars in the till.
Yeah, what makes this?
Like, this is the thing people forget about social media as well, or content marketing. It has to be about making money. Business is about making money. Now, if you're not about making money, but you're about personal brand or profile, whatever it might be, you're doing that because in the end you want to make money. So I don't know many people who are doing their social because they don't want to make money. So it's definitely about looking at, okay, what works? And if the content for me is question and answer, if the content for a client is pretty pictures, if a content is recipes, if content is video, if content is podcast, if content is, like interviews, it's going to be different for every client. Good content is what works. Like, I've done Facebook Live videos before I got my Steadicam and everything that was shaky, that the internet dropped out 3 times and yet got 20,000 views during, like, it was the biggest social media video I've ever done, and it was the worst social media video I've ever done, but it was because of what I was filming. The content was great. So it's not necessarily about all the bells and whistles, and it's not necessarily about all of the beautiful execution of the content. Sometimes it's just bottom line, it's the content. If you have a look at some of the Instagram accounts that use user-generated content, especially the humorous ones, those memes are so badly put together. Those GIFs are crass, but yeah, millions of people follow it and love it. So I don't think it's necessarily good content is about how it's made. I think good content is about what it is.
So it's still content is important for that.
Content is so important, but it's not just about content. It's about what are you trying to achieve with that content.
So content and a story.
Yep.
So if you got a good content, a good story, and...
Yeah, but also why are you doing it? Because I can write great stories. I can write great blogs, but if no one reads them, what's the point? I've just wasted 3 hours or 4 hours or a week or, you know, so it's about doing some research and figuring out what people want. You can't just build it and they will come.
So what do you recommend to a small business in South Australia or around the world if they're starting up on a social media?
Sure. So
channel?
the number one thing I would like to say is it's not too late, ever. Like, you can always start a new account and it work. So don't be afraid that you're too late to Instagram or too late to this or Facebook's changed so much or whatever. I think it's really important when you're starting out to get a presence across all channels, not because people quite often would contradict that and say, no, you should focus all your energy on one. I say test them all out, see where you get the most enjoyment out of it. So if you're going to be doing your social media yourself and you find that you hate Twitter, then don't use Twitter. But if you love Twitter, you might become huge on Twitter, but be crap at Instagram. But everyone's telling you to go on Instagram. So I think to start with, test it out, see which one you like. The other one is, I'd really say, is to look at what your competitors are doing and try and do the opposite of what they're doing. Try and do something completely different so that you stand out.
So a little bit unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic. So, so that's your tips to other small business.
Yeah.
How about established business now? So some of them are because of a lot of social media now, or what is your advice to them about?
Yeah, I think doing a really good audit is probably a really good start for 2020. We've been doing social. A lot of big companies have probably had social media teams for a decade now. So I think doing a really good audit, not of your team, but of your actual social media, is going through and pulling all your profiles apart, looking at what's trended over the last, say, 3 to 5 years. And you'll see some trends in that. You'll have a look at the data and you'll see that. You'll see that you've done some risks that might have seen a little blip, but then you've stopped. So maybe look at reinventing those again. I would say having a really good look at your equipment, of how you're producing social media. You may have invested a whole lot of money into gear that's now almost obsolete. You could refine that and make it really more nimble. I've just bought a piece of equipment that with the app I can film and it edits it to music while I'm filming it. It's amazing. So no post-production at all. So for social media videos. So it's about looking at that. I'd also look at, try not to get too over, looking at being in everything. I think, like I said before, try and be everything when you're new. And maybe now it's refining that and going, okay, we have a strategy for Twitter now, and Twitter is just for customer service and media. And then maybe Pinterest is just for our travel itineraries, for example, or our recipes, right? But all our other content goes on LinkedIn or Facebook. And then our Instagram, we're going to post once a week, but our stories is where we're going to focus our attention. And it could be that your advertising dollars are not necessarily working as hard for you as well. So you might look at it and go, okay, we're going to pull our Instagram ads and just do story ads for a while because there's really good inventory there and it's cheaper at the moment. So, looking at different things and not getting too excited over the TikToks and the, other social media that is around for your brand, unless it's totally if it's totally your jam and that's where your audience is, then go for it.
So, any recommendation? What is the best channel for social media, or depend on
the one where your audience is hanging out?
Okay.
So yeah, it's hard. So if your audience is over 40 and local, then I'd be doubling down on Facebook, Instagram stories, and potentially LinkedIn if you've got the right connections. You've got to look at it this way, right? Facebook, the only people that are going to see your content are those that are following you. in Instagram, people can find your content though if they're not following you, and that's really powerful. So have a look at your number one local hashtag. Have a look at location search. So, you know, if you're based in Hahndorf, have a look at hashtag Hahndorf. Hashtag Hahndorf has got 78,000 posts. People are using it. So people are following that hashtag, not necessarily individual businesses in Hahndorf. So it's really important that you are putting out content using that hashtag. Reading up about best practice on each of those channels is really important as well. So, I mean, I learn every week that something's changed. Instagram changed this week. They put the heart at the bottom, up the top, and the arrow at the bottom. I found out only a month ago that you can use 3 hashtags in Instagram stories if you do it as text and not as a sticker. Look, I didn't know that. Like, how did I not know that? Like, there's all these things that you've got to stay abreast of what's going on.
In relation with a lot of people are talking about they want to be a digital nomad.
Digital nomad.
Because one of your posts, you are drinking wine with a laptop.
Yes.
Being a digital nomad is...
I am. That's my new job. I'm a digital nomad now in 2020.
So how, if some people want to be like that, what's your step in doing that?
I mean, look, I think the digital nomad thing, there's a couple of different versions of digital nomad. One is those that find work on the go. So when you're out and about, you actually collaborate with other digital nomads and try and get work, or you go to working spaces and find work, or you find work from websites. So especially in the digital space or writing space or those sorts of things. I've met people in Cambodia that have been living there for 5 months and they were journalists from America, but they were writing for English newspapers and something else. I think as well, digital nomads are people that have their own business and they can work freely. There are some companies now in Australia, even Adelaide, that they have no office. So their staff all work wherever they want, and they work via video, FaceTime. They have boardroom meetings where they do get together face to face. But I decided in November this year that I'd be a digital nomad. Everything I need for my work is in one backpack. Everything. I don't have a printer. I'm paperless. I don't even carry a notebook anymore. So I've become completely digital. And all my camera equipment, all of my vlogging equipment, my laptop, my phone, everything I need is as compact as possible. And I work wherever I want. So I work from a cafe 1 minute, a pub, by a pool, in a garden. I'll take my dog for a walk and sit in the dog park and work for an hour. So it's really about making it as easy to work wherever you want.
Is that a new thing now in 2020?
I think the technology has made it easier for people. I'm going to Spain for a month in May, and I'm planning on working every day while I'm away. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, but I decided to put the digital nomad to its test in May and go away for a month. So my clients are nervous about it, but I keep saying to them, but I don't see you for 3 weeks now. So, it's just that they think the distance is going to make a difference. But I don't know. I think we're going to head into a really interesting time. I kind of wish I did it a lot more. We had this when I was a young mum. It would have been amazing. Like, I still get to pick up my daughter from her friends and drop her off at school and all those things, but she's a teenager now and she's too cool for me.
So every time you go to post your content on Facebook, on Instagram, there's always a wine.
There's always a wine.
So what type of wine are you favorite at?
I am a self-appointed Australian Chardonnay ambassador. Sounds very official, doesn't it? I'm a Chardonnay lover. I've been in food and wine, but mostly wine journalism and kind of supporting the wine industry since before I was legal to drink alcohol. When I first discovered Adelaide Hills Chardonnay, I almost cried. It was like this moment of joy. I don't drink every day, which a lot of people think I do, and I don't very rarely get drunk. It's not that at all. I just love a good Chardonnay. So I would prefer to spend $100 on a bottle of wine or $50 on a glass of wine and have one than drink really bad wine. So I've done a lot of study in wine. I've met lots of winemakers. I've published wine magazines. I've done courses in wine. But Chardonnay is just something. And then you look at the Australian wine industry is amazing. And then you look at the South Australian wine industry. We're so lucky to live in a place like this. And then Adelaide Hills is is just where my heart is. You know, I'm 4th generation Hills. My daughter's 6th generation Hills. I owned Adelaide Hills magazine. So Adelaide Hills wine is beautiful to me. My boyfriend is actually working at an Adelaide Hills winery for fun on weekends to learn more about wine himself. Since we've been dating, I've been learning wine through his eyes, which is really cool as well. But, you know, when you think about our wine industry in the hills, you know, we've been decimated with the Adelaide Hills bushfires. And it's really, really important that we don't, this is going to sound a bit weird, we need to support those grape growers and wine producers that lost a lot or everything. But we also need to remember to support the ones that didn't, because, you know, they're not getting any business at the moment because everyone's buying the other ones. So it's a fine line, but keep supporting the region as a whole, not just the ones that have been affected, because our whole region has been affected by the bushfires.
So you're promoting the Adelaide Hills in South Australia as well. Have you met Cosi Castelli?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to email him to be a guest here.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But
have you got onto his assistant, Kylie?
but he's busy. Nah, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I just sent an email. But yeah, I love to.
Yeah, it's hard to get people who are busy to give up their time. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do tips, because I want to help, but I don't have the time. I have lots of people contact me going, oh, can I take you out for lunch or coffee to pick your brains? It's like, I wish I had the time. But, you know, I'd love to help everyone. So the tips are back. They're on LinkedIn now, not on Instagram or Facebook. I've decided to put them on LinkedIn because that's where my biggest audience is. So, you know, like I did the Instagram tips for 3 years and people love them, but that's not where my audience is. So I've decided to put them on in LinkedIn. So come on over and find me on LinkedIn. Hashtag ideaschick, you'll find me.
Yeah, and also the Twitter.
Twitter, yeah, I decided this week.
I saw your message first time.
Yeah, I haven't been on Twitter for a little while, like probably 6 months, and I've got a big audience on Twitter, and I was very prolific on Twitter back in the day. I was running the hashtag Adelaide Hills pretty much. I just want to see, I'm testing it really for a client. And also for me, like I still want to play in all the sandpits. I'm a child at heart. I've got fear of missing out. I want to see what's going on. So I've decided just to jump back in there for a little bit as well. But it's hard to stay on top of everything. Like it really is. Podcasts are a great way of like multitasking learning. And I thank goodness for the podcast that I can listen to when I'm walking my dog. Saffy the Staffy. But yeah, it's really important that you stay on top of things. If people are looking to find out more about digital nomads, there's a book called Work Wherever by Lisa Messenger that one of my clients and friends put me onto, and it's really helped me sort of understand what I need to make that happen.
Thank you so much for that tips and advice. So any parting word that to our listener and audience who is looking at and getting on a social media bandwagon?
Sure. Okay. I want you to be consistent across the platforms. It's really, really important that you let somebody else read it. Don't just go on there and write it yourself, especially if you're by yourself in business. Get somebody else to have a look at it and get their opinion. Family, friend, neighbour, someone in a cafe, whatever. The librarian. I work a lot in libraries now. I've discovered how cool libraries are. Now that I'm a digital nomad, I just love them. They're fantastic. Libraries have changed so much since I was last in one. Just a little offset there. You can drink coffee in a library now. I didn't know that. Anyway. The other thing is get your profile right on LinkedIn. So I'm going to explain something just quickly. Google is the godfather of everything online, right? Facebook owns Instagram, Messenger, blah, 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 right? They hate each other's guts. So it's really, really important if you're going to play in the digital landscape that you put your foot in both camps. But always be wary of Google, the godfather, right? So if you're going to, it's really important if you Google your business that you have got your Google My Business account. Google My Business is so powerful. Posting in that is incredibly powerful. Go on is Google Plus, but Google My Business, super important. It's so much real estate, and it's really important that you own that space. Second, that you have a look at what comes up when you Google your business. Having a LinkedIn company page usually comes up very high, but I bet you if you click on it, it's tumbleweed and you've never posted anything on it. You've probably never even optimized your company page on LinkedIn because you don't think LinkedIn's important. But if you look at Google, what are the 3 things that Google puts up as the most important? Probably your company link, your company Facebook page. So make sure that your about is right on your company Facebook page. Don't just worry about your individual personal branding, because if I Google someone's business, I'm going to look at Google My Business. So if the photos are crap and the timing's not right and all the information's not right, it's going to look really unprofessional. If I go to their LinkedIn company page and there's no top photo and there's no information, there's no contact details, and you haven't even posted 1 or 2 posts, it's going to look like a desert. And if you go to a company Facebook page, because people are going, I only use Facebook to do ads now, and then I use my personal brand to promote my business. Well, that's great, but Google doesn't give a shit. Google cares about what Google looks like. So you need to make sure, and if you've got a YouTube channel, second biggest search now, and YouTube is owned by Google. So why wouldn't you be playing in that space? So what I've been doing for clients, if you can't afford high production YouTube video, is do a Facebook Live, download it from Facebook and upload it to YouTube. At least you're going to have some video content for search. So that's a couple of tips.
Thank you for that advice, help, and tips. Thank you so much for guesting to the Guerrilla Podcast Fresh Eyes. It's been a while to contact you. You're very busy.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. If you need any question, just ask Mikyla on our social media platform. So what is your platform?
You just find me on ideaschick. Yeah.
See?
So just search that hashtag. You'll find me. It's not hard.
Thank you so much for this episode. For next week episode, I'll let you know. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
It's Adelaide's podcast on Auspod Syndicate.